This is section 3.3, question 4. What do we have here? It says, some data sets include values so high or so low that they seem to stand apart from the rest of the data. These data are called outliers. Outliers may represent data collection errors, data entry errors, or simply valid but unusual data values. It's important to identify outliers in the data set and examine the outliers carefully to determine if they are an error. One way to detect outliers is to use a box and whisker plot. Data values that fall in these limits are called outliers. Okay, those are outliers. So we have these limits here. So what's the first one here? You take your lower limit. All right, the lower limit would be Q1, and then you subtract. All right, so let me draw a picture here. So I've got a picture. I've got my lower limit here, first quartile, median, second quartile, third quartile, and the maximum piece of data. Now the problem says that, numbers that fall in these ranges right here, in this range or this range, the top or the bottom, these are suspected outliers. Now what are these? All right, here's a lower limit for an outlier. You take Q1, I'm over here on the picture, take Q1 and subtract. All right, so this would be an outlier. You take Q1, that number right there, and you subtract 1.5 times, all right, the interquartile range. So you have to take the interquartile range, which is this, right? This right here, that range right there, that is the IQR, and it's just Q3 minus Q1. Right? You take get the interquartile range, you take that value minus that value, that gives you the IQR. So to get this first value here, that lower limit, you're going to take this first quartile number and subtract 1.5 times that number. That's going to be the lower limit. To get the upper limit, all right, that's this one down here in the picture over here. So that is going to be Q3, all right, so there's Q3. So I'm going to take Q3, I'm going to add 1.5 times the interquartile range. So data values that lie in this range right here, or this range, those are suspected outliers. Let's try this problem, and hopefully this will clear this up. So step one, let's put the data into list one, right? So you go to Stat, over to Edit, all right, Stat, Edit, clear that list one. You probably have data from another problem, so you're in list one, Stat, over to Edit, take your cursor all the way up to the L1, get your cursor highlighting the L1, press Clear, and Enter. You should have a blank for L1 now. So put the data in, right? So it doesn't matter what order you put it in, just get it in there. So maybe you do 65 and then 72, reading across the rows, dot, 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 and then you get down to the last one, 65. Now, when I do that, I'm getting this at the bottom, L1, and then it says 25 equals. That means it's expecting data number 25. So that must mean I have 24 pieces of data in. And when I count these data values, sure enough, n is equal to 24. I've got 24 pieces of data in. I think I've got it all. And when you were putting that in, you probably noticed something here, right? You see that 4 right there? That just looks like it doesn't belong. So we want to test to see if it really is an outlier. So we're going to run this test right here to check these limits. So press the zoom key. I'll do it down here at the bottom. You press the zoom key. Now where's the zoom key? Right up at the very top row. The very top row, you're going to see y equals, this is the very top, y equals, then you'll see window, then you'll see zoom, and then next to zoom you see trace, and next to trace you see graph. All right, so press the zoom key. You press the zoom key, and then automatically your box plot appears. Zoom stat sets the window to show the graph appropriately. So I'm getting a box plot that looks like this. Now this is real long. This tail over here is real long because that's the lowest value. That's the 4. So the 4 looks way off. First up, question A. Question A is up here. Make a box and whisker plot. So which one of these 4 graphs does your picture look like? You know, I think it looks like this one here. That's what it looks like to me. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to select this one. That's what it looks like to me. Now part B says find the value of the interquartile range. All right, so let's do that. Let's get the interquartile range. So we're going to press trace. All right, so press the trace key. All right, you press the trace key. Now the trace key is, right, I'm going to pick, here's the zoom key. Trace is right next to it. So you press that trace key, and when you do that, you get a little star, an asterisk, a cursor, right up here. I'll do it on my picture. It's hard to show on the picture, but I'm down here at the bottom right. I get right there, and that tells me the median. All right, so the median is 65.5. Now you can use left arrow, right arrow, it doesn't matter. Suppose I use the right arrow. Use the right arrow key. Your right arrow, and that brings you over here. Now that's the 3rd quartile. All right, that's Q3, and at the bottom of the calculator is telling you 71.5. Use the right arrow again. That gets you over here to the maximum value, and it will say, all right, we're getting pressed for room here. The maximum value is 80. That's the biggest number that we put in. Now use your left arrow key and get all the way back over here, all right? So I want to get all the way back over here, all right? This is probably not going to show up too well. Well, I can do it like this. We'll do it in red. Use your left arrow key and get right there on Q1, all right? So Q1, left arrow, get my cursor there, 61.5. And then, just to be sure, left arrow again, and it tells you that now you're over here. It says the minimum is 4. Part B wants us to get the IQR. I'll do it right here in the middle. IQR. That is the 3rd quartile value minus the 1st quartile value. So we are getting 71.5 minus 61.5. So that's a 10. So I'm going to enter a 10 down here at the bottom left. Find the value of the interquartile range. 10. Now, next part, part C. Multiply the IQR by 1.5 and find the lower and the upper limits. All right? So take this number 10, multiply it by 1.5. Now, I'm going to write it this way here. I'm going to write this. LL. The lower limit is, all right, well, what's the lower limit? The lower limit is, all right, go back up to your formula, right here, very top. Lower limit is Q1 minus 1.5, right? So this is going to be, I'll write the formula here. Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. Well, Q1, what was Q1? That was 61.5. Minus 1.5 times the IQR, which is 10. Now, these numbers you can probably deal with, but if you just did it straight on your calculator, type in 61.5 minus 1.5 times 10. And that comes out to 46.5. How about UL, upper limit? The upper limit is Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Now, what was Q3? Well, Q3. We have to go back to our picture if you don't remember. Oh, 71.5. All right, so that was 71.5 plus 1.5 times 10. And that turns out to be 86.5. I'm going to erase a few things so we can get a picture here. All right, so I have a lower limit. All right, so here is the lower limit right there. Lower limit is 46.5. The upper limit, UL, is 86.5. And then any number that falls in this range right here, that is a potential outlier. And we have one of those numbers, right? We have 4. 4 is right there. So 4 is the suspected outliers. We don't have any in here, and we have none in here. So we have one suspected outlier. 4 is a suspected outlier. So what's the question here? The question says, all right, down here at the bottom, are there any data values below the lower limit, above the upper limit? Okay. What do we have? Yes, 4 is below the lower limit and probably an error. Okay, so I'm going to select that one. What about the next ones, though? Maybe there's another one. Yes, 80 is above. No, 80 is not. Oh, is it? Is 80 above? No. 80, where's 80? 80 is right here. All right, so 80 is right in there. So we're okay with 80. There appear to be no others. Okay, so there appear to be no others. So I guess what we have to do, oh, no, there does not appear any outliers. I think there is an outlier right here at 4. All right, that's what I'm going with.